He was burning a
I'm ready.
$100 bill to light a cigar as he fell from
All
Burger
right,
King.
here we go. All right, so we're back. Welcome, James. Too good to the show. And just to make sure everybody knows, I was trying to get James on the show like all week, but somebody's ignoring me like all week. But
Not
that's
that,
cool.
right?
That's cool.
He
It's on.
saw.
He had his
looked at
birthday.
the
I understand.
chat,
Yeah.
He looked at the Twitch chat, and he was like, "You know what? The only thing that can save this is Too Good." And he
Oh
paid
my-
good
please.
fee to appear on the show. The requisite 60,000 he gets per appearance.
Oh my
Really.
god. Welcome, James. What's up?
Hey.
Thought we were doing
Yeah,
shirtless. What's going on? Fuck.
What? Oh, no, I got my shirt on for the moment. I'll take it off later.
All right. But let's continue
but
this
yeah,
Dota 2 talk.
You don't
here.
like the Dota 2 community, Richard, you said.
Can't stand them. Assholes.
Like, I find, like, for me, when I watch the Dota 2 community, mainly on Reddit, the thing I like about them is that they're not actually obsessed with esports. They like it, but they actually enjoy just playing the game. So the difference for me is that Dota 2 actually has an active community who actually talk about the game, and when people post like a YouTube link of them just playing quite well, it will actually be relevant to the Reddit thread, like little tips and tricks. When I go to the StarCraft community, I only read about esports. To the point where it's like, it's hard to go there to see the development of the game. It's only the development of
on
esports.
that front. But I mean, it's just like I say, it's just a self-entitlement, man. Like if you're not an immediate fan of Dota 2, I mean, look, right, forget the whole
Whoa,
League of Legends
can
Dota
I-
2 rival thing. Like,
Can I jump on that real fast?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
sure.
That's going to be true always when you compare MOBA games to RTSs. And that's something that I've said since the dawn of time, is that playing a game like StarCraft is an inherently not fun game. No sane... No, it's true, though. No sane random person would you ever introduce to StarCraft and, like, be like, hey, like, go play a couple games for fun, and then, like, you play and you get, like, 6 pulled, or, you know, somebody, like, masses Marines and kills you, like... That's not fun stuff. Like, it's not like an inherently fun game. Whereas if you take something like a MOBA, like League of Legends or Dota, and it's like, hey, like, let's queue up as 5, and even if I'm really shitty, the game will last, you know, like 20 minutes, and we can all run around, and it'll be fun, and there's matchmaking and all that shit. MOBAs will always have a more active community than something hardcore like an RTS, because an RTS game is inherently not something that everybody's going to want to go to the ladder and grind games out with.
What,
You know?
Yeah, but what
But
I
it's not,
find
it's not
the
about
most
grinding
repulsive.
games that with. Go on.
Yeah, what I
But
find
it-
the
but-
most
but-
repulsive
but-
about it is they
but it is-
mobilize. They
It
mobilize.
is kind of grinding games out.
I've never seen the StarCraft 2 community pitchfork in the way I've seen the Dota 2 community do it. Like, everyone says, oh, the StarCraft
Wow.
2 Reddit's cancer.
Okay.
Like, seriously, like, I don't get that. Like you say, Diatide summed it up. That was when I knew I was right. That was, like, when I just knew, like, everything I've been saying about the Dota 2 community was like, thanks, guys. I never need to speak about it again. I don't even want to speak about it, but, of course, this is drama bait, so... The ChanManV drama bait show, so let's do it.
What? Oh my god.
Alright, but, you
This
know,
is the good
but
again. This is the
seriously,
good.
the
You're making a
Diatide
drama
thing
bait.
Literally,
No,
okay,
fuck
fuck
it,
Fuck Diretide. Every single community in the entire fucking history of mankind is like this. I don't know why we still act like we're surprised. I don't think it happens more in any esports
Nope.
community than it does in another. I think every single esports community will witch hunt the fuck out of anything, given the right circumstances. It happens in politics, it happens in economics, it happens in any political issue ever. It happens on Reddit, different Reddit communities, it happens with all sorts of video games. I mean,
No, but
I think it happens...
it's like when I gave the example before comparing the LoL and Dota 2 communities. I didn't say that there aren't assholes in League of Legends. I said that since there's so many more people, because there's a lot more casual people,
Oh, yeah, sure.
they aren't as into it, so they kind of drown out some of the stupidity. Like, essentially, what you're essentially saying is that humans are assholes, and if you get enough humans together, then you'll get a bunch
They'll
of assholes. Yeah,
always act
obviously.
in predictable
The,
ways,
question,
yeah.
the problem is, though, the characterization of each of the different communities. Like, StarCraft 2 is more hardcore, and then some of the Dota 2 people are more hardcore than League of Legends. So they're naturally, inherently going to be more intense and over the top about the things they pitchfork about anyway. So that's why the community is worse in that sense. I mean, you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And if you were to go to like an Angry Birds forums, those people would probably be in general a lot more friendly than somebody on
No,
a Dota.
that's what I mean. Like, because people
No, yeah,
always
I'm
say on
agreeing, I'm
Reddit
agreeing.
that you should never make that case. You know, that like everyone on Reddit's like that. But I mean, I'm on a forum that's for like an obscure band like in fucking electronica, and there's never any douchey comments, obviously, because there's like 100 people and they all just like that band, and everyone just says how they like the band on the forum. You know, so there's not anyone going like, oh, you're fucking.
Well, man,
cunt
it
and
depends on what kind of. Well,
pitchforking.
that's. It depends on what kind of music. It depends on what kind of music form you're on, because those can be just as bad as any other circle jerky, depending on what kind of music form you're on. But Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
I think
So anyway, what was
You were
Too Good
talking-
saying before?
You were the one
Like,
talking,
derailed
man. What are you
7
talking
times?
about?
I was
Something
yeah.
about League of Legends
Like,
and Dota 2.
I want to hear what
No,
Tim
I
was
was
going to
just saying the Dota 2 community, in my opinion, like have a nice balance between they have a lot of esport talk on there, they have a lot of talk about the game, and you say there's like not much people talking about StarCraft 2 as the game itself, but inherently, in my opinion, StarCraft 2 hasn't developed enough as a game over the course of its years to stay interesting and relevant. And in terms of like me, for example, someone as a newbie player, if I go play StarCraft 2, I can't create a moment in a game that anyone's going to give a shit about, right? Because the game doesn't necessarily allow my level of player to do so. But within Dota 2 and League of Legends, it does. And so it's those Reddit communities I've seen, it's a nice mix between casual gamers that will be interested about the tricks, what people are doing in the game, and then also esports. But with going back to the dietide stuff, yeah, I was a little bit pissed off at that as well, just because.
Oh, but James, it was one big joke. It was one big joke. It's just a big joke. Apparently, you shouldn't get upset about it. Like, it made everyone in that community look like a fucking asshole. Like, there's just no getting away from it. You spam like Volvo's website. You go on a Metacritic and you downvote your own game because you didn't get something that was never explicitly promised anyway. Like, fuck that, man. That's too stupid.
Community standpoint, right? When you're a community member of a Valve game, you literally have the tiniest insight of what Valve are working on at any time during the development of the game. And so when they give you something one year and then they just don't do it next year, and Valve, they didn't tell you that, oh, by the way, Dietide, it was specifically made for that patch and it's broken. Like, that game mode has been broken for a whole year, and that's why we didn't do it. If they came out and said that earlier, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, it's going to take a little while to fix, for example. But I was more annoyed because I personally think Valve are working on stuff that will allow people to make their own maps and kind of contribute in different game mods, and how you could play the game Dota 2 outside of its traditional Defense of the Ancients. And with those systems that I think they're working on and other stuff, I kind of felt like, it's kind of shitty that they're putting focus to get this Dietide done, because if they knew maybe what Valve are working on, they might just be whatever, we'll leave it to that. But they did Frostivus, or the Wraith King thing, which was kind of, again, in my opinion, because I think that map, the new map, the Wraith King map, whatever it was called, I think some of the artwork for that map was actually done by some community members. And so therefore, if that's the direction that they are going, it also means that if community members are able to contribute artwork and maybe even change the game mode and how the game plays, and some of because you can actually load that map like on your own server, and you can change some of the code between like the heroes, then essentially you could have what Warcraft 3 gave, which was how Dota was spawned, and that would be a much bigger step for the community. So I was only pissed at that. I wasn't pissed about them kind of going mental together.
Well,
for me, that was fun. But
well, you have Richard and Duncan and Richard talking about the community and how it's like one of the worst communities that they've dealt with. What do you think about that?
Admittedly, I
James?
haven't had that much experience, by the way. It's not like I go there all the time, but I go there every now and then to check on like match threads and stuff, and then I've obviously seen a few things where I was involved directly. But I mean, just from my experience of all the communities I've been in, I can't think of one that was worse, because like I say, the big problem is in some of the other communities where people say ignorant things. Sometimes it's because, like, for example, okay, in Counter-Strike, in HLTV.org's website, you'll see a lot of stupid comments, but actually it's because it's an incredibly multinational site, and so there's a lot of people from like Brazil or countries where they don't have super good English, and so I get the sense a lot of the time, even if what they say seems stupid, they just couldn't say something really, they couldn't really explain themselves very well, so it'll come off as quite simplistic, whereas actually these are like really well written out, totally ignorant troll type posts that I've seen when I go on the Dota one, or just like weird vitriol that doesn't need to exist in esports. Like if I do anything there, it's always about how I should like fuck off to League of Legends or something, which is like the 7th game I ever went to in order or something, But it's always characterized as if you've done anything in League of Legends, then you're like a piece of shit who should never even come to Dota 2 because you're not welcome and we don't need you. And
one of the
go
most-
back, you shill.
Well, hold on.
That's one of the most hilarious.
Let me see what James.
Go on.
James,
I mean,
respond
there's
to that
threads of
first.
people saying I played League of Legends and now I'm coming to Dota 2. Any advice? And people actually give them advice.
I'm just saying, it's one of the
Well,
most fucking
whoa,
hilarious things in
Right.
democracy. Like,
But what Thorin
if-
just described, that happens in StarCraft 2 as well. But I mean, you can find examples of both. But I mean, from what I've seen of the Dota community, and I probably have a lot less experience of Lewis and Thorin, that sentiment definitely rings true. Where if you say like you've spent a large amount of time in League, or you've done a lot of League, or you're coming to Dota, it's a lot of, or you get a lot of that like fuck off back to League of Legends, or this game is too hard for you, go back to League of Legends. Like, even though you can go to a forum and you can post, hey, I'm from League of Legends and I want advice on how to win in StarCraft 2 or Dota 2. Yeah, you can find nice people who will help you, but there is a big circle jerky vibe that comes off as the fuck, the other game and my game is better. Like, you can't deny that.
So
right?
basically, yeah, we're saying Dota 2 is the more of elitist of a community because they probably think their game's the hardest for the movers.
No, that's the thing. They're
It's
insecure.
not even just
Let me
the
explain.
elitist thing either. It's
Well,
the hypocrisy of attacking someone like Thorin, right? Prime example. Let's say Thorin wants to actually do something in Dota 2, right? Well, they would say, oh, you're just sort of hitching your wagon to us to make money, to get hits, to get views, so fuck off back to League of Legends. Pretty much everyone who's now, like, at the cutting edge of the fucking Dota scene has done that anyway. Like, absolutely. Everyone, you made a conscious choice to either sort of, you know what it's like in esports. Anyone who wants to be an esports careerist hitches their wagon to whatever game's going to be the most popular at any given time. It's why you've seen a lot of these StarCraft 2 lovers move into other shit right now. That's what you have to do. You get there when something peaks, you make your money, and then you get out and you go to another game, and you just try and hope no one calls you out about it. And that's pretty much the esports career curve. And I see guys doing that in Dota 2. And it's, it's fucking sad
Give
that,
some
come on,
names.
you know who. No, again, drama bait, not falling for it. You know who they
Come
are.
on, what? Okay.
No, but like,
Okay.
well, I came into Dota 2 because I love Dota and I played it a long time. And like one of the recent people I've seen come into Dota 2 in a small way was DJ Wheat, right? And DJ Wheat was like, okay, he's done a lot of League of Legends and he played some Dota 2 and he was learning the game and he played this show match. And I was like, yeah, I could see that there was, some people knew him as the League of Legends host at some point and, were giving him some shit. But generally, DJ Wheat, he would probably find this game interesting because it's part of his career total in the sense of he's dedicated his life to esports and this is a very relevant esport game. And a lot of people would have watched the International, which is a big kind of gathering of everybody to watch some of the best games. And he probably liked it. And I did see that, okay, I was like, okay, DJ Wheat's getting a little bit of shit from some people in chat on Twitch.
He's a bad example to use because he's the ultimate fucking serial careerist. He doesn't give a fuck about anything apart from his bank balance, I don't think. Maybe he did
come
it
on,
once,
that's not true.
like,
I mean,
Well,
he
So for kind of a two-sided thing, while I do think I would never call out. I mean,
DJ Wheat loves
DJ
video
spent-
games, Richard.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, no,
God
yeah,
forbid he likes
yeah.
games.
That's,
I mean,
that's true. No,
But
DJ Wheat does a long career in esports, and DJ Wheat has a really good career in esports, and a lot of people would say that he's been a positive contribution since his early days. However, I do remember, like, when we were in that fight or whatever, he displayed the same elitism where it was like, what, StarCraft 2 is the same as Breaking Bad, and League of Legends is like American Idol or whatever.
that's true.
And
That's true.
Like, just playing the whole my game is way better than your shitty game kind of thing. Because I remember that was one of the reasons why a lot of people were burned when DJ Wheat went to start casting League of Legends events after the decline of StarCraft 2's popularity, after he made those comments. And like, it's understandable that people would be upset there without even being, like, elitist or whatever. Like, I could see people being burned by that.
I mean, the thing is, the
Okay.
reason why I brought this up is because whenever someone says a really shitty comment, okay, unless it's like a really amazing, like, thought that no one's expressed and they've got all these like different points and subtleties to it, usually I don't take it at face value. Okay, that's why I don't get bothered. I usually think, okay, when I myself say something that's like mildly douchey, yeah, I might actually think that opinion, but the whole point is the fact you'd even come to say it probably suggests like you weren't feeling very good that day or you're pissed off about something else. That's what the impetus to say the shitty thing is, because usually it's not gonna have much effect anyway, except maybe to like hurt the other person who sees it. The reason why I don't buy the whole aspect that Dota 2 people truly believe their game is superior and it's more fun and we've already got a great community and we don't need you and fuck off and all this. The reason I don't buy that is the same reason I don't buy it when this Christian guy comes to your door and he tells you, listen, like, Jesus is great. He's going to make your life better. You're going to be a better person. Because if all that was true, it'd be so awesome for you. You'd be able to live your life, and because of the awesome effect, you wouldn't have to force it on anyone else. The fact that you feel that you can't be happy yourself until everyone else believes this insane thought that you have shows that there's a huge insecurity, and then actually what you're claiming the benefits aren't really the benefits at all. Like if Dota 2 is so superior, right? Then why waste any time arguing with people who play a game you think's inferior? Your game's so awesome. Just go play your game, talk about your game, let them talk on the side. Who gives a shit? Just ignore them. Who cares? The fact that you have to almost base your life, your identity is defined by the fact that you don't play League of Legends. It's not that Dota 2 is so awesome and over here. It's that you don't
I don't
play
think
Dota.
that's the Dota 2 community at all, Thorin. I don't think they
I'm talking
are...
about my experience, mate. I'm not saying what it is. I've told you I haven't been there that much. But every time I go there, this is the equivalent of the feedback I get. And you're giving examples that are the most fucking... like the most low-hanging fruit ever. Like, well, DJ Wheat, who's like beloved in every game and is known to have like been playing the fucking Atari 1 or whatever, is he could come into Dota 2 and they love him. Like, yeah, the difference is when someone comes in where they only know
backlash as well.
Sorry, what was that, James?
I said DJ Wheat was getting some backlash from his Twitch chat because they were watching, him play Dota 2, and there were some people saying he was a bandwagoner. And there's always going to be a few people that have that opinion. But anyway, to talk about the good of Dota 2, like, for me, maybe we shouldn't, like, focus on how the community is, but instead some of the people that build the esports community. I think Dota 2 is in a really good place right now with what it has tournament-wise. Currently, MLG, if they continue to do their kind of standalone tournaments and stay away from leagues where they just bring in the best teams from all over the world to compete and create these great storylines where like Speed Gaming won the last MLG, which was huge when there were like teams like DK there and I think Navi were there as well as Alliance. And Speed Gaming won and they had a really good prize pool since they were able to donate $2.50 from every in-game ticket towards the prize pool. That's great, right? MLG, if they continue doing that, that's great, and that's what they've looked like they could be doing. BTS is actually really oddly bad and good at the same time. It's kind of like if you want to watch Dota at any time of the day, you go watch BTS Beyond the Summit, because they had their own studio, but what they're also doing is allow people to commentate games from their main channel, which now has over 100 million views on it. So you have like your MLG, which is your standalone one big tournament. You have your BTS, which is your everyday broadcast. And then you've also got DreamHack, which are trying to get into the more ESL TV side of things, where they're trying to do a league. Where they started with 50,000, and next year I've asked them, what kind of prize money, and I'm hoping they go for 100,000 to start with. If they continue doing that, you have like this nice kind of European league going on. You've got great stuff over in Asia, obviously, which is like Ace, etc. And then the odd ones are the D2CL and the D2L. And I think the D2CL is run by Navi owner Alex, and the D2L is run by EG's owner Alex, right?
Yes.
And for me, those two should just fuck off. Like, if you got a team, run a fucking team. Like, leave the leagues to the people and the events to people like DreamHack, MLG, Intel Extreme Masters, the guys over in Asia running their stuff. The content that they're creating now, despite getting like $50,000 in prize money, it's quickly going to be becoming very mundane. And until they can build their own LAN event, they shouldn't continue this project, in my opinion. And then oddly, you got Toby, which is kind of like a BTS, but has... it's kind of like... Shit. If you say the good studio is... Wait. Say we're watching Grease Lightning, right? And the good studio, we're going to be the T-Birds, so that's what they're called. The Join Dota is kind of like the Pink Ladies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're just...
What the fuck are we
weird.
talking about? I'm so fucking
That's
lost
an interesting
right now.
analogy. Okay.
I don't know.
It's
It's like a really awkward broadcast. Join Dota. I don't know.
So are you saying screw online events? I mean, screw online type of matches.
No, I'm
and
saying
events,
that
or-
there are a lot of online events that are covered already by like Join Dota and BTS, and the two guys that should get out are EG with D2CL and also Alex with
All right.
or D2CL with Alex and D2L with EG, because next year when a lot more prize money will be injected via the community, people are going to want to donate mainly to see these teams play the big tournaments at LAN. And unless you have access to big LAN events, you should probably, like, there won't be any need next year for two of those tournaments. And I think the D2CL and D2L shouldn't be around.
Okay, so from the standpoint of, I guess, the scene growing, do you see more? I mean, you're basically saying that more events will probably happen next year, right?
Well, more importantly, more LAN events.
More LAN
Or
events.
more
Okay.
focused events with higher prize pool, with companies that are capable of running them, like MLG, Intel Extreme Masters, and DreamHack. That will be
Okay, but too good. Doesn't
Yeah.
it ruin the main world championship when these teams play each
Right.
other
That's
beforehand?
what I was getting at. Yeah.
No, it's better. Like, the fact
I mean, is there anyone in this chat who doesn't think that? Because I think that's like almost taken for granted amongst everyone who's followed the old esports games.
Think of it this way, right? Okay, look at the was it the CPL World Tour with Vu and Fatality, right? This is fucking great because we had a whole tour where basically Vu was winning, and every time he played Fatality, he stomped him. You get to the grand finals, and Fatality wins. Now that is the fucking storyline because Fatality won on the big stage on MTV.
Well, he actually won some events beforehand, but overall, Vu was the best, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then exactly, Vu was still, in some people's minds, the champion for the whole year because of his overperformance. And so when you have DreamHack and you have Intel Extreme Masters, MLG, and you get all these tournaments where these teams will play in a LAN environment, and I want to stress a LAN environment, and you're going to get a storyline where Alliance win 2 out of 3 games versus Na'Vi, and then when Na'Vi play Alliance in the semi-finals of the International, you have that storyline where you should be saying, well, Alliance are the favorites by 2 out of 3 games. And that's a storyline that you need because that sets the underdog, that sets the pace of what's going to happen and the importance of winning here on that stage. So I think it's good that these teams will meet over the course of the year, but certainly LAN events is really where the story needs to be told a lot more in Dota 2, which is the direction it's going.
So, I mean, you can even see in League of Legends, right, where this sort of narrative has gone awry, where it's actually people have gotten the false sense of what happened because of what the overall storyline seems like. So in the Season 2 World Championship of League of Legends, Taipei Assassins won the whole tournament, right? And that was a surprise. Well, now every fucker on Reddit will claim that they always knew that they were the best. They were the best team in the world for sure. In reality, they were better than people thought. That's why they won. But they were in reality going into the tournament, they were probably about, say, like the 4th best team. And so some of the teams they beat, they were actually underdogs against. But you've actually done a disservice to not only that team by telling them they were always the best and that's why they won the tournament, but also you've made their storyline worse for winning the tournament. Because if the storyline is that they overcame like Najin Sword, this really good Korean team, they beat the best European team, M5, then they beat the best Korean team in the actual final and won the whole tournament, that's an incredible story. It's like Fnatic winning the DreamHack tournament for CSGO. Well, in CSGO, if we'd only had that as the main tournament and then Fnatic won it, you'd think the same thing if you were looking back in 3 years, like, oh, I guess Fnatic were just the best team all year. No, what made the Fnatic underdog story so good is that they weren't even close to the best team. Very Games, Nip, they won all these events for the whole year, and then they lost in the final. That makes the storyline way better, surely. So I just hate the way it's presented as a narrative enhancer to have the one tournament that you all build up to, whereas I think it's better to have the old system and the big tournaments. Like, put the two together and you just get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think
which I know is your favorite catchphrase, James.
Yeah.
I'm getting sick
absolutely.
of false narratives in general in esports, to be honest. Like, the idea that, everything's got to be some fucking bullshit, spoon-fed fucking storyline. Casters can't even be critical about players or teams. Everyone's got to say nice things and try and dig out some fucking positive angle. Like, it's getting a bit it is getting fucking contrived and really forced at the moment, trying to follow stuff.
All right.
Well, we are a bit.
I thought we were on the good stuff. Can we get to the good stuff?
All right,
Holy fucking shit.
Last comment. Last comment on Dota 2. James, I'll let you take it. You were about to say something?
No, I was No, I wasn't going to say anything. You're the host. Take us
All
on
right.
a magical
All right,
journey.
let's go to CS:GO. We're gonna, man, we're spending so much time on the good already, but let's go to CS:GO and kind of people are saying the rebirth of the scene, and with DreamHack being such a huge event, and Thorin, I know you've been a big part of it recently. Why don't you lead us up? What do you think of the resurgence recently?
I mean, actually, that's one of the things that I guess came from Dota 2 indirectly was the idea that the community could in any way fund the prize pool. Because what was annoying was, in fact, actually, you know what? If we're gonna, since we're talking about the good, I always have to start with the good and then immediately plunge right into the absolute horrors of shit. I'm gonna immediately now attack ESL and IEM because ESL and IEM basically told us from the beginning of CS:GO that this game can't be a major tournament by cutting it and not even giving it a chance on the circuit. And in fact, I remember Red Eye made this comment, okay, on Reddit that said something along the lines of like, "I challenge you guys, if you can get 100,000 people, then we'll have it in the IEM," which was like, what the fuck is that?
75K. It was 75K.
Okay.
It was in an interview I did.
So that's fair enough.
Holy shit.
Just tell everyone I did contribute something to esports this year.
So he challenged the community, okay, and it made it sound like, oh, the community are the ones who have to step up here, and they better do something if they want to prove that it's a real game. Well, what happened was CS:GO didn't get 75K. It kept going along with these little small events, and it kept having like 20K, maybe 30K. If it had the Dota 2 ones going after it at Star Series, it could get the 40K, but it was like a fake 40K because it was people waiting for Dota 2. So what happens eventually is Valve come up with this initiative, totally separate to ESL and all these people. They do this massive tournament, and they have the record-breaking numbers, okay? I think whatever it was, 140K, something on stream. Well, then comes Red Eye, I think it was, and said something like, well, I did challenge you guys to get the 100K, and you have done it, so let's see if it's in ESL next year. And now, because IEM's got given the fucking cash envelope, like, here's all the prize purse for your whole tournament. Could you run a tournament, please? Yeah, I guess we probably could. Now they're going to have their own tournament for 250K. But this is like what you were saying before about, like, does the tournament scene actually dictate how big the game is? Like, I don't think it does, but if you don't have an appropriate level of, like, tournament and, like, meaning and all that sort of shit, people aren't going to tune into 15 small tournaments in a row that all seem identical and never all have the best teams because it's only got 8K, so, like, 3 big teams go, and then the fourth one's like, yeah, we'll skip that, we'll go to the next one. When you have the big major tournaments, that's when you get the max numbers. So I actually think the annoying thing is, yes, the CSGO tournament at DreamHack definitely proved that CSGO, at least at the major tournaments, can be a premier title, like maybe fourth best on the circuit. The problem is, though, I think it always could have been. Like, if IEM World Championship had CSGO there, and if another tournament, I would say ESWC, but that event itself has gone downhill. Something equivalent, though, if you had a major tournament, you had 2 of them a year or 3 of them a year, I think it always could have done this. And so what's funny is, it's actually kind of like a shot in the face for some of the people in these other organizations who claimed it couldn't be that and that it had to prove itself, because really it didn't prove itself. The community did.
Yeah, I actually give it, like, I wouldn't take much away from ESL here, because I would be very scared as a major, like, tournament organizer to run CSGO, and I always feel that your tournament should just grow naturally. I would just give more credit to Valve in the sense that they allowed not only the tournament to grow, but also the prize money to grow, which is a huge empowerment to players, obviously playing in the tournaments, the teams, as well as the event organizers. Obviously, some people are going to get a little bit excited about the ability to have the community chip in. You know, cough, cough, MLG, going to go mental on Dota 2 next year.
Okay.
And I'm sure Intel Extreme Masters will be very happy to run any, you know, kind of Valve product where the prize money could be contributed by the community, since Riot are probably going to be taking away that LCS contract from them next year. I believe like they're building their own studio, Riot or something, in Germany.
They already have one.
Yeah, and then ESL are basically going to be hired during 2014 to run it, and then probably 2015 they might as well hire half of ESL to work for Riot, then ESL. Where that's what I think is going to happen.
Wow, that's interesting.
Already bringing in people outside of the current kind of crop, if you'll cast it and stuff.
So,
I mean, that's already confirmed.
Yeah, but either way, I would give a lot of credit to Valve in the sense of cutting out a lot of the hard work to grow a scene's prize money and kind of media attention. And I would also give a lot of credit to the people that ran Counter-Strike Go at its basic level with online tournaments. Like, for me, Anders and Semler, I really give a shout out to those two, because they were obviously 2 commentators that weren't expecting there to be a $250,000 tournament at DreamHack throughout the course of just commentating it. They were just doing it because they loved the game, and and they kind of kept the scene warm. And then Valve basically cut out the middleman in sense of, of an Extreme Masters or a DreamHack, and said, hey, we've got these cool systems that we know that work from Team Fortress 2, Dota 2, etc. And it worked. And I think next year it could be really good for CS:GO. But it won't be, like you said, Thorin, it will probably be like the fourth most popular. But it depends how much attention Valve give it as well. They need to be quite good on creating value for people's $10 every time they want to buy a tournament ticket, like items and all this other stuff. And so we'll see. But I felt it was a great tournament. I really enjoyed the panel at DreamHack Winter.
Yeah, it was
Thorin, you were really good, actually, even though apparently people hated your Lakers.
The jersey, man. The jersey got so much hate.
And but Thorin, for me, like that panel was actually, from what I saw of it in small portions, was better than our Dota 2 panel. We were kind of either tired or bored, but our Dota 2 finals wasn't as hyped as yours by any means, and we had audio issues, like constant static coming through. But you did a really good job. So Scoots was really great, standing on his little box to make sure he was the same height as everyone else. And is it BDS was the main host? BSL, sorry, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he was okay. He gets an okay from me.
No, he fucking wasn't okay, James. He was really weak, man. He was really poor.
He was okay.
Come on, dude. Like,
I didn't want being nice.
He
fucking
suit.
He was like a guy who had clearly been away from the game. Like he was getting team names wrong. That's easily fixed. If you're gonna fucking host an event, do some fucking research. I mean, that's easily fixed. But then, like, just a fucking charisma vacuum. It was awkward. It was like he just didn't gel with anyone else there. He was really poor. He was the worst thing about it. And considering they had Lurpis there, I mean, that's saying a lot. So he was really bad. But Thorin and Scoots, man, were fucking great. It's so good.
But for next year, I think that CS:GO needs about 6 big LAN events.
That can happen. 6.
I think that would really kind of make the storylines, keep the players active, make sure the commentators and hosts have something to do, and I think it will inject a lot of money into the game itself through ticket purchases with Valve. And so 6 big tournaments. I'm expecting DreamHack Summer, DreamHack Winter, and outside of that, I mean Copenhagen Games. Are these people ready to take on $250,000 tournament? Who knows? But it needs 6 LAN events, CS:GO next year.
The thing is, like I was saying, how it could be the 4th. That's obviously not amazing, but it's enough. That's the point. Because actually, what I realized about CS:GO from this big tournament was I had tons of people, actually League of Legends pros, come up to me the next time I was at League of Legends events, like, oh, I loved watching that tournament. And I was like, all right, do you watch CS:GO? They're like, no, but I used to watch CS 1.6, and so I watched that one tournament, And so that's the thing. Like, when I watch tennis, tennis is like one of the like side sports that I'm not like super into. So so even if the same players are playing in like a Masters 100 ATP event, I wouldn't watch it. But every time the 4 majors are on, I watch all of the 4 majors because that's my way of keeping up with the sport, and it's the best sport, because the storylines build into that, and then that's where it gets really awesome. So I think as long as it can have at least 2 or 3 a year, there's enough to keep people who will just come for that one big tournament. But that's actually why what I was saying before didn't exist. It's that these people always would have watched the major, but because it wasn't there, they're not going to watch every like small event going into it. So I actually think that's a flaw with the esports model. Look at WCS this year. Look at LCS. Their model goes like this: we want the maximum amount of viewing hours per person for the whole scene, and we want everyone to watch the base level of the competition and watch every match and watch the 6-hour block on the stream, and then they're going to watch the next tournament, the regional, and then they're going to watch the big final, and that's how we're going to get everyone into the big final. But I actually think that that's kind of like forced in a way. Like, actually, there's people who'll come for the big final if that's done well enough that never watched the middle tournaments there. Like actually, probably more will, because more casual people can be attracted to that than the mundane, like, 2 teams that are sort of decent at, like, 5th and 6th in NA playing each other. Who really cares about that?
I think League of Legends will suffer from the kind of slightly stale year that StarCraft 2 suffered from with WCS next year, League of Legends. I think StarCraft 2 might have a better year with some of the changes, but the problem that Blizzard have is they couldn't do a full 180. They couldn't just say, oh, actually, we're going to send everyone back to their regions and and allow more space for bigger
Yeah.
tournaments. They kind of did a little bit, but they couldn't do a complete 180. But they've made it slightly better. But I could see League of Legends suffering a little bit, but I don't think it will make a huge difference because they have a huge fan base and player base, and it's not all about the viewership, which I still feel StarCraft is a little bit more about the viewership than the playing these days.
Well, when you mentioned StarCraft, so why don't we transition over into some StarCraft 2 here? And again, we talked a lot about it last week, but I figured we'd just touch a little bit on WCS, and not so much WCS 2013, because I think we've talked ad nauseum about it.
Wait,
but...
can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I thought that Thorin's point was interesting. The idea that there could be a large untapped viewership out there for certain games that's just never been explored before because the right tournament didn't come along to capture it. I think that's a really interesting concept, because if you would have asked anyone prior to that CS:GO tournament if the CS:GO tournament could ever get, those numbers, people would just point to the current smaller tournaments and go like, no, obviously not. It would never come close to that. So I think it's really interesting that tournament came up and blew everybody away in regards to those numbers. It makes you wonder sometimes about other things.
Yeah.
But
actually, I've seen this in Quake. So
mean,
Too Good, think about in Quake, right? Loads of us who followed Quake 3 for like 10 years, we don't watch every Face-It Cup, okay? But every time QuakeCon's on, people like roll out of their cave and they watch QuakeCon. They're like, right, I want to see Rafa play out. Where's Cypher? Like, they don't actually follow the Quake anymore. Their lives are too busy, but they'll watch that one big tournament. Like, I think the precedent is there, but the difference is the newer games don't know that much. They don't know enough about the history to know that exists, They think that they're inventing esports.
Yeah, Steve,
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how you didn't figure that out with the kind of boost of numbers that tournaments get, like the International or the League of Legends Grand Finals. Like, obviously, if you've got the right stage, the right prize pool, and you've got a game.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying that CS:GO, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong because my CS history is really poor. Is there anybody, like, everybody would have told you, like, LCS or the International 3 is going to be a fucking huge event, even if we couldn't give you specific numbers. But CS:GO, being able to get over 100,000 on a stream, would anybody have believed that was possible?
I would have bet against it. I would have bet that you would get even
sure.
over, like, 70k.
I understand that there are certain large events that'll roll around that can capture, very large audiences. But those are a lot easier to call. It's like what?
It's like Evo for fighting games. I don't watch.
Oh yeah, sure.
That's a good example.
I'll watch Evo.
Sure.
So and you got to think Counter-Strike is like, I wouldn't have taken that bet because I agree with you guys. I wouldn't have known if it could or not. But if someone said 250,000 DreamHack, and then think about all the people that have like had an experience with Counter-Strike 1.6, if you can get the right kind of messaging out there, and that, like, the reason I wouldn't have said that it would have got 100,000 is because DreamHack hasn't inherently been a kind of platform to say, here's the biggest CS tournament, right? That was kind of so long ago with the CPLs that's where you would have been like, yeah, if CPL did that and they had their name and they were still around, they would. And that's kind of like what Evo is to fighting games, what the International is obviously for Dota 2, and like StarCraft. There's I personally always felt that in some weird ways, DreamHack and MLGs were better than BlizzCons at pulling in people to watch. But obviously Blizzard, they have a big audience outside of BlizzCon, who are there watching all the different panels and streams and different games, and then we'll tune in and watch that as well. But
I also think it's really
there's no stage for CS:GO. But
I also think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting to consider the numbers for that CS:GO event in conjunction with what you said earlier, where you said you prefer things to be kind of homegrown, and you prefer kind of tournament scenes to kind of grow organically. But then it seems like if you ever have an outside company step in, like if you can combine the best of both worlds, where you've got a scene that kind of grows organically on its own, and you get like another company to step in to kind of bolster it. I don't know. It seems it's just interesting. I'm not saying that one way is better or worse, but it's just interesting to think about, I think.
Well,
let's talk.
It's no different than the comparison I made that Dota 2 is right now. It's like you've got different people doing different kind of styles of tournaments, and they help each other out, and some of them take more kind of showmanship routes, and like the corporate way and bring in the sponsors, and some of them grow it from the scene, like the BTS and the Join Dota. So they both help each other. There's no right or wrong way. It's just people have to be smart at how they want to build their tournament and their vision. That's the only problem I see Dota 2 having. And the thing for CS:GO is there going to be enough people that can handle those big stages if the community want to see more of these tournaments?
Yeah,
know,
I mean, so
can
with-
Extreme Masters do a good job? Can Copenhagen Games, who's doing CS:GO tournaments in America, you know, outside of DreamHack, who can put on that kind of event?
Well, I mean, you talk about Dota 2 and you talk about just currently how it is, and StarCraft 2 wasn't that different from that 2 years ago. Before
Yeah, it was great, StarCraft
yeah.
2.
So before WCS, just the whole country national version of WCS, this is pretty much what it was. But the biggest knock on the StarCraft 2 scene was that there was too many tournaments overlapping with each other, and the scheduling was all crazy and that kind of stuff. And there was even that talk about the whole summit, and those three organizations getting together, partnering up, and trying to at least work around each other's schedule. And I feel like that was kind of the predecessor to having a WCS. So do we need?
Yeah, but do we need that? Like survival of the fittest. Like why the fuck? Like
wow.
All
right.
Like seriously, if you okay, I don't think WCS should have ever come around. I think it was a mistake. I believe that they could have incorporated Blizzard's branding and marketing power around all the existing tournaments that were currently there, and had something at BlizzCon which shone light on, this guy came from DreamHack qualifiers, and this guy came from MLGs, and this guy came from Inter Extreme Masters, and done this kind of thing. But yeah, survival of the fittest, man. Give the people the power to run tournaments, and Valve have done the next step where they've not only given them, people have the ability to run tournaments, but they're also helping them with prize money and marketing through the game, and the best will stick around. If you can't run a tournament and can't keep your audience, unlucky. You didn't have the correct business model. I mean, we saw MLG do pay to view, and they had 20,000 payers the first StarCraft event they did. Second one they had 12,000. So they got it wrong.
Yeah,
unlucky.
Richard,
That's
what do you
the
think?
thing as well. Well, basically, I mean, I don't want to
Thorin, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Thorin.
What I like about that model is basically you are trying to get the best of both worlds, because you're trying to get it so that there's a homegrown scene of people can choose what event they attend, and basically you don't even have to actually have your grand final be in conjunction with those tournaments. You yourself are just setting it up like that. You're saying that this tournament qualifies for that. You're not making a deal with DreamHack we're all going to agree that you're a subsidiary of our tournament, and that if they win you just say, I'll give the winner of the DreamHack tournament gets X points to come to my tournament at the end of the year. That's how the developer can run theirs, but allow the community to exist at the same time. Because unfortunately, I get the feeling that either they're being condescending and thinking, you guys don't know how to run a circuit, so we're going to run a circuit and show you. Or there's that sinister thing of they maybe want to control things, and they actually want to cut out certain tournaments and be like, no, I don't want you to have these teams at your tournament. I want to control what tournaments they go to. And I think in general, if you look at how esports got to this point here, it's by the grassroots element of basically, he's saying there, viewers and which teams actually go to the tournament. Actually, teams going to the tournament is what can make or break a tournament. If you have a tournament, you can offer more prize money at your tournament, right? But if they don't like the conditions, I know certain players hated to go to Kiev, for example, so they would always drop that event. In CSGO, they didn't like to go to ESEA, so even though that was 20 grand, they'd drop that event. Even though you've got the money, you have to have all the other features, because then the teams won't go, and if the teams won't go, people won't watch it as much. And if people don't watch it as much, now another tournament gets those viewers. So actually, the scene, in the same way as the supposed free market economics takes care of itself, but it doesn't really. That's what should happen with the scene, If you let all the restrictions off, people will decide what the good tournaments are, and then you base that on where your big tournament comes at the end of the year. I think that's the system.
Well, I guess how much of it is that these tournaments were going under? And it took Blizzard coming in here and rescuing some of these.
Yeah, but that's kind of in my opinion.
What? Who the fuck did Blizzard rescue?
No, Blizzard were giving money to GOM TV for ages. They bought out IPL. They wanted to do something to keep the scene there.
Blizzard save
that
the
worked
scene.
out.
The thing is okay, it's Blizzard, as far as them helping the scene grow, are fucking shit game developers. Blizzard, if you ask me what Blizzard are good at, I'll be they're really good at making cinematics and big games. That's for me Blizzard, right? Because they used to be amazing at making really hardcore games, but the problem is that StarCraft 2, the way that Blizzard like I can't believe they haven't done anything with fucking Battle.net. Like I just can't believe they haven't looked at other people's games and looked at free to play or looked at like different ways to actually
Microtransactions, selling
yeah,
skins.
yeah, like you know, we could talk about this for ages, but like essentially the backbone of StarCraft 2, because it's with Blizzard, is what's, in my opinion, the biggest flaw of StarCraft 2 as an esport game. Because Blizzard have not built anything to help empower the community, and when they tried to come in and save the community, they hired all the IPL staff, which are like children. Like, you might as well just have a kindergarten run your esport division. It really is, in my opinion, that way. Sorry if those guys are watching, but at the end of the day, you know.
Richard, you haven't said much in a while. What are your thoughts on?
It's a bit of a mixed bag for me, like with StarCraft, because I kind of like the way the community's headed. Like, I know it's going to sound fucked up, but compared to when I first got into StarCraft 2, and StarCraft 2 was the top dog, I found it to be a very different animal to work within compared to where we are now. I think the community's a lot more based. I think like they've got a better appreciation of their game. And, you know, I think better things are coming out of the community, and I think the people who are still involved, the content creators, the players, they are genuinely people who love the game. Like, no one's here freeloading anymore. If you want to freeload, you go to a bigger title. So, you know,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Or not even necessarily a bigger title. You just go to Hearthstone because Blizzard will give you a pass to do that. Hey now, but true, right? Okay. Hey, we all love Twilight. It's okay. So, you know, I think it's a much better community to operate within now, and I think better things are coming out of it. But, you know, WCS has been a massive disappointment for me. When a company like Blizzard, with the resources they have, come in and they say they're going to make this fucking global league, I got excited. I thought it was going to be that and not LCS that put esports on the map, like 100%.
Yeah, and we've talked ad nauseum about just all the issues with WCS this year. But what do you think about the changes for 2014? You still see there being major issues with WCS?
The problem is that it's a step in the right direction, but man, 12 months is a long fucking time.
That's what I mean. In esports,
man.
Yeah,
like we're still gonna.
Is a year in esports.
Yeah, or even just a month can be. You're like 12 months is a long like we have no idea what the landscape for esports is going to look like in a year from now. You know, and in 3 years out, it's almost completely imperceivable. You know, So I mean, like, you kind of I think Thorin was talking about earlier how they realized they fucked up with the Korean thing, but they couldn't really completely undo it. So they're not kicking anybody out, but they're still going to let 2 new Koreans in, you know, each season. So it's like, so where are we going to be at the end of this year, you know? How many Koreans are still going to be left versus how many foreigners are actually going to be in the foreign dedicated, you know, WCS thing? So, I mean, they're moving in the right direction, and people have always criticized Blizzard for moving slowly, but it's just, when you have companies like Valve and Riot who are so proactive about taking charge, taking their games by the balls and fucking tearing them, you know, into these like new places that they've never been before, you just don't really have time to sit around and wait for the giant bureaucracy that is Blizzard. You know, the solution to their esports division is hiring all of the employees from a failed tournament that already got cut, you know, from IGN, which is humorous in and of itself, you know. Like, I mean, I don't know, like, it's one of those too little too late things. Like, I hope really good things happen in 2014 for StarCraft, I really do, but man, Blizzard takes a long fucking time to do things, and as long as they don't have some kind of implementation in StarCraft 2, some kind of microtransaction system, some kind of way to make money off of people, I don't believe that they're ever going to be serious about managing it like they are Hearthstone, you know.
But I don't think Blizzard ever really realized like what they had with the whole esports side of things. And we did an article on Cadre before it became esports heaven. We talked to a high-ranking Blizzard employee there, and who remains anonymous. But the quote was, "We're not trying to make a good esports game. We just want to make the best game we can." You know, they were really, and this was after WCS had been introduced. And it's like, if you've got so much, you know, riding on WCS, and then you say something like that, I think it really shows the sort of, you know, the misfocus, if you like. And it's a shame because I know it could have been something really special, but I think all the changes now are almost like too little too late. Like, it's never going to get back to the top. It's never going to be the top tier esport, but I don't believe all the doom and gloom that it's going to die. I just think it's never going to be, it's always going to live in the shadow of a Dota 2 and a League
Well,
Legend.
it's the
And that's
nature of the
cool,
game.
you know?
I mean, it's the nature of the game.
The
The
problem
game
is,
is
Yeah,
though,
it's
I-
obviously like
accessible.
each
it's like-
different
it's
genres are obviously going to have different popularity with, etc. So we can't really say. I mean, StarCraft was obviously the biggest thing we had in esports, and it really was an amazing kind of year when StarCraft 2 came around. But I do still believe, like what you mentioned with that game developer, it's kind of like, well, if you've got a community that are currently active and still playing your game, and they're all playing multiplayer and they're competitive, what are you doing for these users on like a daily basis? What are you offering them? Like, how
like-
are you bringing them value that they would like to spend money and they don't?
Yeah,
They're
there's
kind
like,
of like
it's just money on the fucking
Yeah,
table. It's
yeah.
literally just money
yeah,
laying on
it's
the
like,
table.
Oh no, we made a really good game and we sold it for the single player, and then there's still people playing it. Well, that just eats up server money, but it's okay because the next copy will ship.
Yeah.
In a year's time, and then we'll get all those single-player players back. But the fact is, they need to recognize who their community is, Blizzard, and actually develop for them. And they are competitive gamers, which essentially rolls on into, the esports side of things. It doesn't mean they're going to want to go to tournaments, but you can still offer something good to any level of skilled player that likes playing competitively against someone else.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Blizzard know what they're doing with their, I don't think they know their customer anymore. Basically, like yeah.
Dorn,
It doesn't
Well, yeah,
seem like they
Dorn,
do.
thoughts?
I don't think
Let
they
me
know
get-
how to prioritize like what they want. Like you've got. I mean, like it's like exactly what Destiny said. It's become this like huge bureaucracy, and it shouldn't be like that. Like if you want to create a successful esports league, that should be almost implicit by the development of StarCraft 2 and everything they had planned for it. They did everything they did out in Korea to make sort of StarCraft 2 the prevalent title for it to overshadow Brood War. That would then suggest to me they did have some sort of long-term plan, but it's been so poorly implemented at every turn, and they even seem confused about what they're trying to do. They don't seem to listen to feedback quick enough, and that's just been, and whether that's because people aren't hearing it or whether it just takes so long to implement. It's been a real shame. Like WCS should have been, like I say, it should have been the be all and end all. Like,
But I just think it's more the game developers than maybe the. I could
thing is,
even
though,
take a lot
like,
of blame
I
off
just
the
find it
esports
fucking-
department because I don't think they can do much. I don't think they have much control over like.
All right, let's
game
hear Dorn.
developers.
Dorn wants to get a point in here.
Like, I can't handle this fucking analogy, right, that you have to give people time. Right, first of all, that whole narrative is set up on the premise that each esports game will last 100 years and eventually we'll get there, guys. StarCraft 2 could be dead as an esports game in 3 years. So you don't
Yeah.
have
How
4
long
years
did- how
to
long
gradually
did
change
an
it.
esport game-
Like 3 or 4? 4.
Yeah, I
3
always
and a
say a
half, I
good
think.
esport game will last 5 years.
So think about it this
Yeah.
way. They make the analogy, and it sounds like it makes sense because of how they explain it, as though it was like a huge tanker, and you can't turn it instantly. You have to gradually turn it like that. But that's not the way any revolution works. Like, if you have a revolution in a country, right, you don't kill every single person who supported the last regime. You kill enough, and that you take over, where the perception changes that, we've had a revolution now, and now we all agree that, like, there's a new set of people in power, and we're just going to do things differently. So if Blizzard want to, tomorrow they could make a WCS awesome. And forget all that shit about, but then it's unfair because we let some Koreans play in the NA region. Now what do they do? Well, there's like a famous Confucius quote, that says, the man who makes a mistake and then doesn't correct the mistake has made another mistake. So actually, you're just compounding your mistakes here. You made the mistake
There's
before,
there's another
well,
quote.
that's your bad.
There's another real quick quote that goes just like that. It's like
Confucius quote.
Hold on, Richard.
another quote that's exactly like that is like the best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago, and the second best time to plant it is right now. Yeah, it's the same kind of
Sure.
idea.
Well, I mean, the reason why I say that in
I don't have
WCS
any
is
quotes.
because
No Confucius quotes.
WCS is like I can't give Blizzard any credit for what they've done in terms of managing esports in WCS, because all they've done is come in, and even the positive things they've done, it's like they've trampled over something that was really good before and put up a shittier version, and because people can't remember what was there before, they're like, well, that's pretty good, and you're like, well, no, what was there before was way better. Like, I don't know who the fuck wants to see 3 GSLs per year. Like, I used to like it when there was like 6, there was 8, there was whatever, but then people are saying, well, maybe GOM TV don't have enough money. Why the fuck are GOM TV doing it in the first place? Oh, that's right, because you wouldn't work with Kesper and let Kesper, who had TV channels, who had massive companies sponsoring teams for hundreds of $1,000s, you wouldn't let them run their own league. And so as a result, because you wouldn't let them run a league alongside Brood War leagues, you forcibly put these shitters called GOM in who knew nothing and just threw money at them until they had enough tournaments. And now they're in trouble. Oh, well, maybe we should go with like a model that works in your country already, and then you could actually build off that, you know. And so instead, what they did is they killed the fucking golden goose, Brood War, which is the only game we've ever had, aside from League of Legends now, where it had this grassroots element, it had people who could watch on TV, it had a massive fan base. You killed that golden goose, thinking you could create another one artificially, and instead you've got this retarded scenario where now it's the worst for everyone. It's the worst of both worlds. Because now all the NA players complain that they can't play because they're stuck in a region where the B team Korean guys beat them. Meanwhile, no one ever talks about the Korean guys. Where the fuck do the people who are the best Koreans in the world make almost nothing in StarCraft 2? They make way less than like the Muslim makes, they make way less than all these people. These people don't have proper salaries in an infrastructure because the industry for StarCraft 2 doesn't exist. It's all with the Kesper teams, and even that's dying off now. Like, where is the thing in Blizzard, right? Where is the thing in StarCraft 2 where if I'm a fan of Prime, okay, I go and I buy a Prime banner and it gives some money to Marine King Prime's team? That doesn't exist. Instead, what happens is Marine King, because of this fucked up social system there, believes that his like Hyungs or whatever are going to take care of him, and he goes and wins a big tournament. Then he has to give a share of that to his team to keep the team running, and then the team are like, oh, now you better pose for some fucking some hoodies so we can make some money. Like, this is so stupid. Everyone is in the worst possible scenario because of this Blizzard system. Like, I can't think of a way you could fuck the system up for both regions more.
I think, to be fair, even I don't even think that I would actually disagree in that. I think that most people actually do prefer the systems that we had before. I think most people, maybe it doesn't seem like it now, but if you were to ask most people, like, do you think it was more exciting when we had like the MLGs and the DreamHacks and the GSLs? I think that was more exciting. I think most people would actually agree with you that more people were excited for all of those tournaments than the
Thorin's
WCS
talking about
system.
Like the people that are watching now, like because esports change so quickly that you do get people don't remember 6 months ago in esports because it's such a fast changing.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, think about the analogy I gave before Destiny, where I actually admitted that maybe I was coming at it from the wrong sense of LCS, because I was only arguing as if LCS had to exist and it had to exist that way. It's the same thing now. Yeah. People think the solution to WCS is to take away region locking. No, WCS itself is the problem. That's the big problem. The solution is a scenario where WCS isn't the be-all, end-all, and the other shit has to feed into it. It's where it's a separate thing. And so as long as that's not even on the table, then you can never get to any kind of solution, can you? Like, if you just make WCS the exact same as it was this year, but with region locking, then you'll just end up with like 3 tournaments where, some NA people win like $8,000 each. Like, who gives a fuck? That doesn't change anything.
You also have to remember as well that WCS, just as a brand name, means absolutely dog shit to Blizzard in the long term. Okay? Like, so the fact of the matter is, Intel Extreme Masters is a name, and it's a company behind it, ESL, and that is a brand that they want to grow on a yearly basis to bring in more sponsors and create more revenue from. WCS doesn't build its brand name to bring in more sponsors and create revenue from, because they aren't bringing in like big sponsors into WCS. And MLG, is MLG. So like, if you just took all the money that you spent in WCS, which probably isn't a lot anyway, just allowed these people to have their own brand names like MLG, Intel Extreme Masters, GOM TV's GSL, and just say, hey, we're going to support you the best we can from our marketing. Good luck. Make our game famous. You'd have a better year. Because those companies
would we have a better year, or would we have a lot of these companies just folding?
No, they wouldn't fold. It'd just be more money for them to do what they were doing anyways. Well, I mean, what James is saying is right, but I think that, I mean, it's easy to say that now in hindsight, but WCS could have been something really cool. It's almost, like, how Valve's Steam network kind of works, where every game they promote works as cross-promotion for all their other games? What if WCS was something like that for Blizzard, where they have a WCS for Hearthstone, for StarCraft, for Diablo 3, in 15 years when PvP gets implemented? Yeah, WCS could have been that for Blizzard. I don't know if it still can be, but it's easy to say now that they should have just given the money to everybody else, but I really wish that they would have worked on the WCS brand and turned that into like a cross-promotional Blizzard tool that they would be proud to show off at a BlizzCon and to integrate all of their new games into, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think it would have been more powerful to focus on the other brands for longevity within esports, because like WCS is going to be there when StarCraft 2's there, but when StarCraft 2 disappears, the people that are fans of StarCraft 2 and WCS will disappear with it, despite it's the people who are running the tournaments at ESL and other companies. But instead, if the kind of focus was on ESL's brand, when StarCraft 2 disappears, then ESL would be able to be like, hey, these are our new games we're doing, and within these new games, oh, look, we've retained some of our audience because they were fans of the franchise of ESL and Internet Extreme Masters, as opposed to WCS, which I don't believe became a brand or a very good one, and certainly hasn't. It hasn't grown like as a company side of things. Like if you have like, I think League of Legends have done pretty well, right, with their brand LCS.
Yeah.
Like they have sponsors like Coca-Cola or something, right? Like they've actually turned that into a brand, and that's pretty useful. But WCS hasn't become a brand that they've been able to sell or generate more money from to help the scene. It's just there.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
I'm just saying that it would be awesome if Blizzard was actually incentivized to turn WCS into a marketable brand that they could use as a cross-promotional platform for all the games, because it would give them the incentive. Yeah, it would give them, like, selling the announcer packs of StarCraft 2 or the voice packs or the skins or whatever. Like, if they had that platform of WCS to market it from, they would have more incentive to keep the StarCraft 2 multiplayer experience, going. The servers, and like you said, like, these are all things I've thought of before. It's so dumb that the servers just sit there costing Blizzard money and they're not making any money off them. There's money left on the table, There's just so much more that could be done with that WCS brand. I hate that they half-ass that and they just kind of threw money at it.
Like brands and tournaments power. When I was, I hosted DreamHack's 2011 StarCraft Open in Stockholm, and it was like we did it in a little theater in Stockholm, but it was quite big online. We had invited players like MC and White Ra made it to the finals. To give you an idea of what you're saying, Steve, like a marketing tool to promote your other games, I didn't charge money to do this event, like host it. I just asked them to run me a Bloodline Champions advert. So
yeah, sure.
I went on this stage and I did all this, and then we ran a Bloodline Champions advert. Bloodline Champions would average about 4,000 signups a day. When we ran it here, we hit over 100,000 signups over the course of the weekend for Bloodline Champions. Like I think the first day was like we hit over like around 40 to 50, and it was like it actually crashed the sign-up servers. So if you're Blizzard and you're like, well, we got a bunch of cool games, why not actually just use some of the marketing budgets from World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and put those into making WCS a brand? And
exactly.
Kind of,
and then you could be run fucking Hearthstone commercials, in the commercial breaks of like the StarCraft 2, championship finals and shit like that. Yeah, like it's all this stuff is in place for them to do that. They just don't. I don't understand why. I have to give them credit because these guys are, they make the 7-figure fucking salaries and shit. I'm sure they've got to have some good reason for it, but it goes over my head why they would have all the cogs are in place. They just won't put them together and fucking move WCS like they should,
Let's talk about.
They don't even have to be revolutionary about it. They can because they're behind on that. They can just fucking copy Valve in the way that Valve markets fucking Steam. Everything that Valve does is just a drive to get more people to download the fucking Steam client, because every time somebody grabs a Steam client, there's that average fucking dollar value that I'm sure Valve has on every single fucking person that has Steam. And so everything that Valve does can generate revenue that way, Like Blizzard could do the exact same thing with their entire WCS branding, but for whatever fucking reason they just choose not to. I don't know why not.
Well, here's the thing, right? So we're talking about this notion that,
I think that
these companies believe
storylines, Steve.
So these companies claim that they believe their game's going to last years and years, and it's going to have this, it'll have this cycle where we can change things and make it a real sport and esports and all that shit. I don't think these companies, if you look at their actions, actually believe that the esports side can ever make money, because they all make it sound like we're just going to take this marketing budget and we're going to throw it at the game, and that's like charity. Like, we're going to give you guys something, but it could never make money. Meanwhile, all these companies already existed who either can make money or can survive or who can stay and keep doing tournaments. Like, one of the most maddening things to me, when these companies talk about this, is when LCS over and over, Riot have made this statement, that goes like this: we actually lose money by running the LCS, which first of all is like, well, fucking obviously you give away like $3 million, like where are you going to make that back? So that's just a fucking stupid comment in itself. But secondly, what kind of phrasing is that? Like, we lose money. That's like Christmas Day comes along, okay, all my kids are opening their presents, and I go, you know, you kids, I lost a lot of money buying these fucking presents for you. Like, what kind of shitty dad would you be there? No, surely you bought the presents because you really do love your kids and you wanted them to have an awesome time and that. Like, listen, you little shits, you better love that because I fucking lost a lot of my money on that. I could have spent that on hookers, beer, everything. You better love that Tonka toy or whatever. Meanwhile, it's like these companies already exist. There's people, like with the CSGO example, people are like desperate. Like, you know that stupid meme online, like, hey, take my money already. That's what people are like in esports. There's people who desperately want to have like fan shit. They want to have hats. We were talking about the Koreans before. There's people who, you know how many people wanted to buy one of those Kesper jackets and they couldn't even buy one because they don't have a facility to sell them in those countries? These people aren't using what already exists and is obvious to make money. If you do all this shit, it would sustain itself, and then you wouldn't have to treat it like you were just tossing it away, like, oh, well, use this budget here. It could be its own thing where you actually are building it as like a real thing. Like, it's going to make this much this year, and then we're going to get this sponsor to give this much, and so we'll put this much in this prize purse. None of that exists right now, and that's why it's half-assed, because it's just someone throwing money at the problem.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's take a quick break.
It's starting to change around now. I mean, esports is making money, and it's not about how much money these game developers can take from people. It's more about how many different routes or opportunities can they create for the people to want to spend their money. That's the difference. And Valve obviously have created a good amount of like revenues where people want to spend money. Riot as well have done pretty well with the free-to-play model, and you know, people are buying skins and, you know, XP boosts or whatever the fuck. I don't know what they buy really, but they buy stuff, right? Blizzard don't. You know, Quake has a subscription. CS has like skins for weapons and other cool stuff, and you know, it's so people are learning. But yeah, esports can make a lot of money. You just have to understand what does your customer want to fucking spend it on. You know.
All right, let's take a quick break, and
don't get that.
We'll continue after this.
Fuck you, Chris.
Damn. So edgy.
I was gonna sing a song there.